Since we have an enormous amount of information to cover tonight, I would like to now call upon our Chief Executive Officer, Malcolm Slako, to introduce this evening's program. Once again, thank you for all attending this evening's event.
Thank you, Buster. As a practicing gerontologist, it's always a pleasure for me to host such wonderful experts. When you have Koenig, Roman, and Schultz, you got the big guns. And we are so pleased to have them there. Unfortunately, Dr. Judy could not make it this evening, so we're going to move right along. We're going to start with a very, very short video. Do not go to sleep. Do not cross go. Do not collect $200. After this very short video, we will start with our speakers individually, then we'll move to a panel discussion. So if we can go ahead and run the video now, we'll go ahead and get started with our program. Thank you all for coming. In moving our program right along, obviously we have a serious problem here and we need serious solutions to them. And our speakers tonight are going to add some insight. Our first speaker is an old friend and colleague of mine, Dr. Mark Koenig. He's the Associate Director of VA Health Services Research and Development Center of Excellence. He's the Associate Director of Research Training, South Central MIR ECC. Dr. Koenig is a geropsychiatrist whose clinical practice focuses on the assessment and treatment of psychological problems in persons with chronic medical and neurological illnesses. He is a research scientist who's continued to actively mentor and educate the VA, the staff of the VA for over 17 years. Currently, Mark serves as the co-chief of education and mentoring at the Houston Center for Quality of Care and Utilization Studies, a Veterans Affairs Health Services Research and Development Center of Excellence. Michael E. DeBakey. Mark, I really have to read all this. He has maintained grant funding, very important, for the past 10 years and has published over 120 peer-reviewed manuscripts, including over 50 on dementia, which is very important to us tonight. In addition, Dr. Koenig is the chair-elect of the Board of Directors of the Alzheimer's Association, Houston Southeast Chapter. Mark, it is a privilege and a pleasure to have you here. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Mark Koenig.
Thank you so much, and thank you to 7 Acres and to the Alzheimer's Association. On behalf of all the speakers, we thank you for sponsoring this, and thank you to the JCC for hosting us tonight. This is a great crowd and a great cause. So, okay. So what I want to do tonight is kind of make 2 points to you. One is I want to make the point that the health of the person with dementia is integrally linked to the health of the caregiver, and that you have to take care of both. in order to improve the situation for a person with dementia. And the second thing I want to impart to you is some hope, as a message of hope. And that is, we know we can improve the quality of life of persons with dementia by addressing the psychological and behavioral problems of persons with dementia and their caregiver. But the problems are in recognition. There's recognition by providers and recognition by caregivers and patients of when there is a problem and when the person needs to go and seek help. And secondly, the second part of the problem is where to go for help. So I'm telling you, there's help out there. And I hope by the end of this talk, I give you a few points about how to better recognize these psychological and behavioral problems and how to get help. Up to 90% of persons with dementia will develop psychological or behavioral problems sometime during the course of the illness. And these are problems like depression, like hallucinations, or like paranoia, agitation, aggression. That can be physical aggression or verbal aggression, or things such as apathy. These are almost all persons will develop one of these significant problems sometime during the course of the illness. And when you look at caregivers, they also suffer as well. Almost half of caregivers will develop a significant psychological problem, such as depression or anxiety, sometime during the course of the illness. And it makes sense for all of those, and most of you, I'm sure in the audience who have been touched by Alzheimer's and other dementias know of the stress that goes with caregiving somebody that has dementia. The consequences of psychological and behavioral problems that develop are significant for not only the patient but the caregiver. When you look at quality of life in the patient and in the caregiver, it's not the amount of memory problems that affect quality of life. But more than anything, it's the amount of psychological and behavioral problems that the person with the dementia has. That and the amount of care that's necessary. But the psychological and behavioral problems are big, and they not only contribute to quality of life, but they're one of the strongest predictors of the need to transition from being able to take care of somebody at home to needing to go to a long-term care facility. And when you look at caregivers, not only do psychological and behavioral problems of the person with dementia affect their quality of life, but it worsens their physical health. There's been lots and lots of studies that show that caregivers of persons with dementia, and particularly those that have psychological and behavioral problems, have worse physical health. And again, you can think of a lot of reasons, for that. Not only the stress, but they're so overwhelmed with taking care of the other person, they're not taking care of themselves as far as exercise or diet or taking their medications or going to see their own physician. So let's move on to recognition. Many times people assume that the psychological and behavioral problems are normal and a part of the illness, and worst of all, that there's nothing to do about them. And so they don't say anything about it, and don't assume that the person with dementia or their caregiver will be asked about it by their provider, by their primary care doctor, or by their neurologist, or by their psychiatrist. It doesn't always come out in the evaluation. Ultimately, it should, but it doesn't always. So don't assume that if the doctor doesn't ask about it, that it's not important, because it's affecting you. It's affecting the person, the caregiver. And so you need the caregiver needs to be an active participant and bring that to the discussion. Let the professionals know, I'm having a difficult time. My spouse is, verbally aggressive, or my spouse is seeing things, or my spouse is, constantly, aggravated about and blaming me for stealing things. You know, write these down before you go see the doctor. Things that are bothering you, or things that seem to be distressing, you know, to the person with dementia. You know, again, when a person comes to my office or a physician's office, you know, I'm gonna have 30 minutes, or I may have an hour, you know, with the person. And what happens in that hour, you know, is likely not representative of what's happening in the other 23 hours of the day. You know, so the doctors need a summary, you know, from the caregiver about what's happening. What are the most significant events? What are the most distressing events? Let friends and family know about how you're doing, or about how the person's doing, or what is, you know, what are the most bothersome things. Where do you need help? This is a theme that's going to come out a lot. And then reach out reach out for help. There's a lot of help that's available outside of the doctor's office. The doctors can be helpful, but there's a lot of help outside of the medical field. The Alzheimer's Association, that wonderful video, you know, is a great resource. You know, you go to alz.org. You know, call the 24-hour helpline. You know, somebody is always there. You know, you have a problem in the middle of the night you don't know how to deal with, you call the 800 number. It's enormously helpful to know that somebody is out there and can provide some help. And there's other you know, excellent help within our city. Jewish Family Services has geriatric care management. They have a senior adult services, and they have wonderful staff. And this is one of the things that they do, is provide help to caregivers, or help caregivers and patients find resources that are available in the community. We have in Houston a United Way helpline, 211, another place to find resources in the community. And 7 Acres is a wonderful resource for our community. So big message, you know, here is that there's a lot of information out there, and not just educational information. There's real people out there that can provide you know, personal assistance and customized you know, assistance to meet the needs of the person with dementia and the caregiver. Gosh, I don't know why those letters turn black, but I'll walk you through this. So.